Right, so we begin by dedicating this presentation to the founder Acharya of International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Srila Prabhupada. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurube Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajadam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dhinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Jayatam Sharato Pangur Mama Manda Matirgati Matsarvasva Padam Bojo Radha Madana Mohana Divya Vrindavanya Kalpadrumadaha Srimat Ratnagara Simhasana Ustav Sriman Radha Srila Govinda Devo Rashtali Sevyamano Smarami Sriman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivatastatastitaha Karshan Venur Sanargopir Gopinata Shriyastanaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye Dharma Projito Kaitavo Atra Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam Vedyam Vastavam Atra Vastu Sivadam Tapotrayon Moolanam. This Bhagavata Purana is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion. For the welfare of all such truth uproots the threefold miseries. Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim Vaparerishvaraha Sadhye Hridiya Avarudyate Atra Kritivihi Shushrusubhi Stakshanat. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Nigamakam tataro dalitam phalam sukamukaram mritadravya samhitam pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam muhuraho rasika bhuvibhavakaha. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya cha sorry. Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavada Sevaya Bhagavadi Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavatir Naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishihi Nischrayasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swasti Anyanam Mahad. This Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of God, and it is compiled by Srila Vyasadeva, the incarnation of God. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people, and it is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Tvai ananda Tvai ananda vishaya matir madhupatiya sakrit radim udvahatat ada gange vaugam udanvatihi. O Lord of sweetness, O Madhupate, as the Ganga forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attraction be constantly drawn unto you without being diverted to anyone else. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vignamidasha Narasimhai Pudavali Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pango Bangayitam Girim Yakrupathamaham Vande Sri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanyam Ishwaram. That's it. By the mercy of Guru and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, a blind man can gaze at the stars, a lame man can cross the mountains, and a dumb person can recite beautiful poetry. Nothing is not attainable by one who surrenders to the lotus feet of the Guru and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Hare Krishna everyone, welcome. All right. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam, and we are discussing Canto 2, Chapter 2, and we are now in part 3 of Chapter 2. So just a very quick recap of what is Chapter 2 all about. So this is entitled The Lord in the Heart. So basically it's talking about the Paramatma and also the Paramatma Yogi and what is attained by this. So a quick recap. So this chapter began with Brahma Virat Rupa Dharana for recreation. So it talked about how Brahma had to remember the Virat Rupa in order to recreate the universe. And so the Virat Rupa meditation is equivalent to the Brahman meditation. So actually it's like a bridge. So Virat Rupa and from completely impersonal Brahman, one has to somehow come to the personal level if one wants to get liberation. So simply understanding that everything is light alone is not sufficient to bring one to the point of liberation. One has to make the personal connection, even though the personal connection is very minor, it's very, very subtle, right? Even at least that small personal connection is needed. So from Brahman to Virat Rupa, that is that first step of making the personal connection to the Lord rather than the impersonal connection. So when Brahman translates into the form of the Virat Rupa, then that yogi makes the transfer from complete impersonalism to a beginning first baby step towards personalism. And that is enough for him to get liberation. So it is understood that Brahman realization or Virat Rupa realization is merely it is transcendental realization, but it is not the complete understanding of the transcendental supreme truth. It is one aspect. It is the first aspect, in fact, of the supreme truth. So this is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. This is also mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam in many places. The supreme absolute truth is known by three aspects. The first aspect is the Brahman or the Virat Rupa. The second aspect is Paramatma realization, localized aspect of God. And the final aspect or the highest aspect of realization is Bhagavan realization. Bhagavan means that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has his form, has his names, has his qualities, and has his pastimes. So that is a complete feature of Bhagavan. Paramatma, there is form, right? There are some names, but it is not complete because there are no pastimes. And the quality is also not manifested completely. And it is a Paramatma feature, it is a localized feature of the material world. There is no Paramatma in the spiritual world, you see.
So therefore, it is second level. So anyway, the chapter started in that way, from Brahma making the transition from Brahman to Virat Rupa uh, concentration, right? And then we also heard about Sukadev Goswami answering the questions of Parikshit Maharaj. What must a man do when he's about to die, right? So Sukadev Goswami is saying, definitely what a man must do, uh, it's definitely not focusing upon mere rituals and activities, not karma kanda, right? Because the purpose of fruitive activities, even if it's following the Vedic scriptures, right, it is meant for fruitive attainment only. So the highest of the fruitive attainment is nothing but attaining Swargaloka. Of course, fruitive attainment one can get from within this material world, in this world itself, right? Like for example, one can attain good wealth, great parentage, nice position in life, comfort, power, beauty, intelligence, fame. So these are all attainments that one may attain from performing pious activities. And it can be achieved within this world, but even greater than within this world, it can be achieved as Swargaloka. So Sukadev Goswami says, no, Swarga is not the aim. It should not be the aim of karma. Karma kanda should not be the focus in with the idea of attaining Swarga. That is not what a person should do. Why? Because simply they are not able to break out of the cycle of samsara. Because even Swarga Loka, there is a limit to its enjoyment. Once the pious credits are expired, then one has to again come down to material to Bhuloka. And what to speak of Bhuloka, after expiring the pious credits, normally a person has to then experience the sinful stock. So first they enjoy, after that they suffer in hell to clear away the sinful karma, and then they may take birth on Earth or in the various planets lower than Earth or whatever, in various species, until they come to the human being form. So again, the cycle of samsara takes place again. So that is not something an intelligent person should do, right? So one should take advantage of this human birth to focus on the real purpose of life. So then to that end, he says, but this Vedic scriptures is very bewildering because most of the topics in the Vedas is dedicated towards attaining this Swargaloka. Because that is what the Jivas wanted. The Jivas came to the material world because they wanted to be independent of the Lord and because they wanted to exploit and dominate material energy. Right? So that's what they wanted. So the Lord didn't want to interfere directly. So most of the Vedic scriptures is like a manual for the human being to get what his heart desires. So by following the Vedic scriptures, they can attain what he wants, what the desire was, without suffering any negative reactions. But it's a very risky business because no one can follow without committing any small sin somewhere. Just like how previous session we talked about the pastime of Maharaj Nirga, right? How he became a lizard, even though he was following so much of the prescriptions very, very carefully, still he made a mistake. So therefore, it's discussed as a risky business. And so Sukadev Goswami rejects Pravriti Marga. So this Karma Kanda of fruitive activities is part of what is called the Pravriti Marga. Pravriti Marga means the path of sense attachment or sense gratification, or the path of attachment. So that is what is mentioned in the Vedas most of the time. Right? And he says, give up that Pravriti Marga and take up Nivritti Marga. Nivritti Marga, that means, is to become a transcendentalist. That means they are not interested in anything material. So whatever that's in material enjoyment, it's rejected. So the path of Nivritti Marga is the path of rejecting the sense gratification or to giving up, renouncing the sense gratification. So that is the path of Nivritti Marga. And in there, we have the yogis. So yogis or transcendentalists in the Nivritti Marga, there are two types. One is the Dhyana yogi or the Jnana yogi, which becomes the meditating Dhyana yogi. So they go step by step. First they go by Karma Yoga, then Jnana Yoga, then Dhyana Yoga, and then they come to that topmost step, which is Bhakti Yoga. Or one can directly move into Bhakti. So either one can take the gradual step-by-step ladder, yoga ladder to come towards bhakti, or one can take up the preliminary bhakti processes and then from there elevate oneself to transcendental bhakti. So there's bhakti in the three modes and there's bhakti in the transcendence. So there are two paths, either the bhakti path or the yoga ladder path. So that's in the Nivritti Marga. So speaking about that, so then initially in chapter 1, this first few chapters is talking about the yoga ladder path. So it's beginning from the level of Brahman realization. So Brahman realization begins at the step of Jnana Yoga. So at Jnana Yoga, one is able to understand that he is Brahman, everything is spirit, he is the soul, right? But he has not realized the actual quality of the absolute truth yet. So if he goes deeper and if he starts to meditate and he starts to meditate within himself, then he will come to the level of Paramatma realization, right? So then he begins to concentrate on Paramatma, right, to achieve a higher level. So in Paramatma Dharanasya, right? So we understand that there are two types of, I mentioned earlier, there are two types of yogis. The yoga ladder yogi, which is the jnana, dhyana, meditating type, and there is the bhakti yoga, the pure bhakti yoga devotees, right? So two types of yogis. Now, in the first type of yogi, in the yoga ladder type of yogi, right? There itself, there is the beginning level and there is the more advanced level. So in the beginning level, when in the yoga ladder, they begin with the karma yoga, and from karma yoga, they graduate to jnana yoga, and in jnana yoga, they attain Brahman. So, and from Brahman, they cannot get real understanding of Brahman until they connect Brahman to the somewhat personal feature of the Lord. So that connection or that transition is given because they can't directly go to Paramatma. Let's say some jnana yogis, they don't want to proceed further. They just want to get liberation. So they are happy to just achieve Brahman realization. So for these kind of yogis, right? So the transition from Brahman to Virat Rupa is given. So it is recommended for these yogis to meditate upon the Virat Rupa. So this is called the beginners. This is the beginners stage of the dhyana yogi. So dhyana means meditation. So the yogi who's meditating in his beginner level of Brahman realization, right? He will meditate upon the Virat Rupa because he's not ready to accept the personal concept of a supreme Lord yet. So by dhyana yoga, he becomes purified, and by purification, he loses his envy, and then knowledge increases further, and he begins to see the connection of the entire universe, and he starts to see the universe as various parts and parcels of the supreme being. So then he begins to meditate on the universe as different parts of the Supreme Being, like the lotus feet is the Patala planets, and then the Talatala are the ankles. So like that, he begins to meditate. So as he is meditating in this way, he gets further purification and further uh, realization of knowledge. And from there, he goes to the next level. He becomes an advanced dhyana yogi. So an advanced dhyana yogi is naturally detached from material nature already. So at the advanced dhyana yogi, he is able to now shift his focus into Paramatma Dharana. Dharana means concentration. So he shifts his concentration from Virat Rupa to Paramatma. So that is what an advanced dhyana yogi will focus on. The second level of Bhagavan, of Brahman realization, the second level of the absolute truth. So we heard all this previously, right? And Now, we also heard a little bit about the process of the Paramatma Yogi. Now, we're talking more about the Paramatma Yogi, the advanced yogi, who is focusing on the Paramatma. So, what is the process for him? What does he do? So, we will hear a bit of that today, right? We started a bit last time, and we will continue with that today. What is the process of this Paramatma Yogi? It's a very mystical thing. So, that's why it's called the mystic path, the path of mysticism or Raja Yoga, right? It is very mysterious, this meditation. So anyway, so Sukadev Goswami continues with his narration. So he tells Parikshit Maharaj, "O king, whenever the yogi desires to leave this planet of human beings, he should not be perplexed about the proper time or place." So if you remember, we heard in Bhagavad Gita in chapter 6 how Krishna will tell Arjuna, you know, before a yogi leaves this world, he has to plan his timing. He has to plan where he's going to leave the world, and he has to plan what time he's going to leave the world, everything, remember? Right? So it says a yogi must try to leave during the northern movement of the sun, Uttaranayana. That means when the sun, from the time of Pongal, Makara Sankranti, from then until sometime around, I think around now, somewhere around this period, uh, it is after this period. So that is the northern, from Makara Sankranti, the sun starts to move in the northern direction. So that period is Makara means Capricorn. So the Earth is divided into upper hemisphere and lower hemisphere. So Capricorn onwards is upper hemisphere. Cancer onwards is the returning lower hemisphere. So like that, that's how the yogi will plan to set his departure, right? And it also says in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, he should plan to leave during the day and not during darkness, right? And he should leave, there are many conditions which is given according to time and place. But here we see this statement which is completely contrary. He says, whenever the yogi desires to leave this planet of human beings, he should not be perplexed about the proper time or place. So, no need to worry. So, we can understand that the dhyana yogi that Krishna was talking about in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, that is the preliminary yogi, the beginner yogi, the yogi who has not yet come to the Paramatma level platform, right? So, for him, the proper time and the proper place, all that is very important. But for a person who's already attained Brahman and he is now looking into further advancement, right? By searching for Paramatma, right? So for him, right, no need to worry about proper time or place, right? Any time will do, any place will do, right? Because his concentration is superior. Same thing with the pure devotee also. The devotee, the bhakta path also, the bhakti path also, don't have to worry about proper time and place. So instead, what he should do, he should comfortably sit without being disturbed. So this is the, a dhyana yogi, an advanced dhyana yogi would be able to sit in Padmasana or any of the special positions comfortably for hours and days and months and years without movement, because they have already mastered the asana, they have already mastered their breathing, they have already mastered their concentration. So their position of sitting doesn't disturb them anymore. So you can imagine it's not easy to do, right? But anyway, this is the recommendation. And regulating the life air, so controlling the life air within the body, right? Should control the senses by the mind. So that's the purpose of controlling the life air. It's to mechanically help to control one's senses. And by controlling one's senses, one can control the mind, beginning to control the mind, right? So it's a mechanical step-by-step process, right? So Prabhupada says, these opportune moments, which is mentioned over here. So as I told you earlier, this is for the beginner, right? For the mixed devotee, for the beginner yoga, for the beginner yogi, not for the advanced yogi, right? So these opportune moments are not as important as one being a successful yogi who's able to quit as his body as he likes. So this is a more advanced level of yoga. So for the Paramatma yogi, he doesn't have to worry about time, place, circumstances. So these are what he should be doing, focusing on controlling the mind, and thereafter, the yogi should merge his mind by his own unalloyed intelligence, Swabuddhya Amalaya, so into the living entity. So what does that mean? That means now he's about to leave the body. So he has the power now to make this merging on his own. So for the preliminary yogi, he needs to depend on the time, on the correct time, on the correct place, and the right moment, and things like that. So although he's also working in the same principles of controlling the senses and controlling the mind, but it's not so it's not so easy for him to do this. But for the advanced yogi, right? So he's able to, what does he do? So as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita also, the mind is the key. So how you can control the mind? The mind is the key is the tool. The mind is the tool, not the key actually. I should use the word tool. So in order for us to achieve self-realization, the Lord gives us a tool. So the tool is our mind. And by regulating the body and regulating the senses, one should aim towards controlling the mind, either by the dhyana yoga process or by bhakti yoga process. So that is the thing. That's why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, one who has controlled the mind, right? The mind is our greatest enemy. The mind can be our greatest friend. So if we cannot control the mind is our greatest enemy. If we can control our mind, then it becomes our greatest friend. Why our greatest friend? Because it can help us to transcend. So it's a tool, right? And then we have Atma, right? So Atma is the soul. So here it says the yogi should merge his mind into the Atma, into the living entity. So therefore, his mind now currently in our living existence, one who is, for normal people, right? We have three elements. We have the mind, we have the intelligence, we have the false ego, and these three elements are subtle elements which envelop the soul. Okay. So now in the process of yoga, whether it's bhakti yoga or dhyana yoga, the whole idea is to dissolve away these three subtle elements. So to dissolve away. So therefore, the first thing one does is dissolving the mind or merging the mind into the Atma. So the mind becomes non-different with the soul. It becomes part of the soul. It's sort of how you can say, it dilutes into the soul. Like in homeopathy, we have this concept of dilution, right? We dilute disease with another what you call substrate or whatever. So here the same idea is also the mind is diluted into the Atma. How does he do that? So that is done by with the key. Here, this is the tool. The mind is the tool, but what is the key which helps us to achieve this? So the key to help us achieve this is our intelligence. So that's why in order to first control the mind, there's a two-way process. The first thing is one has to purify the intelligence. One has to get the right intelligence. How to get the right intelligence? Because intelligence is the thing that discriminates, that tells us what is right, what is wrong, what we should do, what we should not do. The differentiation, the discrimination, that comes from the intelligence. Whereas the mind's function is simply to think, to feel, and to will. That is the purpose of the mind. It has desires kept inside, it has impressions kept inside, and using these impressions and desires, something like a hard disk, right? Using the impressions and the desires, it simply thinks about the desires or thinks about his experiences. And he feels emotions linked to his experiences and to his desires. And he develops some determination in order to pursue those feelings or those desires. So that is what the mind does. Okay. So the first thing one should do is to purify the intelligence. How to purify the intelligence? Because the intelligence is the key. We purify by hearing, right? By reading, by hearing. So we get the right information, like Bhagavad Gita. Krishna speaks the Bhagavad Gita. So we get the right information. We understand what is dharma, what is adharma, what is karma, akarma, vikarma, what is bhakti, what is yoga. So all these different things we understand, we realize, we know what should be done, what should not be done. So this way, what happens is our intelligence becomes purified. So therefore, here the word used is unalloyed intelligence. Swa buddhya amalaya. Amalaya means pure or unalloyed. Unalloyed means unmixed, right? So what does it mean when the intelligence is unmixed? It means that the intelligence is focused only in spiritual attainment, right? Like Bhagavad Gita, there's one verse. Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kuru nandana bahushaka hi anantascha buddhayo avyavasayanam. Chapter 2. That verse says, for one who is serious in spiritual life, his intelligence is single branched. That means is single focused. Aim is only one. Vyavasaya atmika buddhi. Buddhi means intelligence. Vyavasaya atmika means single aim. He doesn't have multiple distractions to or multiple aims. So whereas the Bahushaka means many branched. One who is not serious in spiritual life, his intelligence is many branched. So he has many things to achieve, many things he wants to think about, many things he wants to attain. So those are that is for one who is not serious. So that means the intelligence has not yet been sufficiently purified. So how to purify the intelligence, right? In our path, the Bhakti Yoga path, it is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Padasevanam, right? Hearing, chanting, remembering, doing services, Archanam, doing puja, doing prayers, Vandanam, right? So these are all the various processes in our Bhakti path. But in the yoga, in the Dhyana Yoga path, oh, it's very difficult. They have to mechanically practice sitting in asana for many years until they can. The whole purpose of the so many different types of asanas they do is only so that they can sit in Padmasana or in one of the other asanas comfortably without any agitation for hours to days. That's the whole point of asana. And then they have to control their breath by breathing in, breathing out, by controlling. Oh, so difficult. And they have to go to a lonely place, give up everything. So it's not easy, right? So anyway, the purpose is to swabuddhya amalaya, to purify the intelligence, because this intelligence is the key which pushes our mind, which brings our mind to be merged with the Atma. So it makes the purpose of our mind consistent with the purpose of our Atma, right? So currently our mind is filled with material thoughts. So we want our mind to be filled with Krishna consciousness thoughts or spiritual thoughts. So that is also merging the mind with the Atma. Because the actual dharma of the Atma is to be Krishna conscious. But our mind is otherwise, right? So we have to merge the mind with the Atma through the agency of our intelligence. So that's what happens. So the process is the same. I mean, the goal is the attainment is the same, whether it is the Dhyana Yoga path or whether it's the Bhakti Yoga path. Okay. So in this way, when the mind is merged into the Atma, and then the next step is to merge the Atma into the Brahman. So now with intelligence again, Swabuddhya Amalaya, mind has been merged, and together, what does it mean by Atma merged to the Brahman? The only thing which is stopping the Atma from merging with the Brahman at that stage is the false ego, Ahamkara, right? Because mind has already been, the first intelligence has been purified, mind has already been merged with the Atma, right? So what is left? It's only Ahankara, false ego. So when the mind, when the intelligence is purified, and when he realizes Brahman, he understands his actual position, that he has nothing to do with the material nature. He gives up his false designation with the material nature. He stops associating himself with the material nature. So that is the point when the ahankara, or the false ego, is diluted, is removed, right? So the false ego also falls away, and then there is no boundary between the Atma and the Brahman at that time. So, like bubbles. Like, what is bubbles? Bubbles is there is a boundary of air with water, right? When you remove the boundary of the water, the air is free to escape into the air or the atmosphere. So that thin skin of the bubble is like our paramatma. It's like our ahankara, our false ego. So once the bubble bursts, so then the Atma is able to merge into the Brahman in that sense. Merge means not that completely become, even though the air merges into the atmosphere, but still the air molecules remained distinct. They don't just disappear, right? The air molecule, just like how fragrance, when fragrance, air molecules carry fragrance, but when they enter into the atmosphere, right, it's not like instantly the fragrance is everywhere, isn't it? It is carried by the air molecules. So the individuality of the air molecules is still there. Same thing with the Atma. When the Atma merges into the Brahman, right, the individuality of the Atma is still there. It's just that there is no boundary between Atma and the other Atmas, and everything is spirit. Atma is also spirit, made out of spirit. Material nature is also Brahman, right? Everything is becoming Brahman. So then we can see everything as Brahman. That is the understanding. There is no more separate designations linked to the material nature. But that is not the complete understanding yet, right? Because Brahman is subservient to the Parabrahman. There is the Supreme Personality or the Supreme Brahman also. So we have to know not only Brahman, we have to go beyond. What is the source of Brahman? So that is to be understood. So Prabhupada says here, when the mind is materialistic or absorbed in material contact, it acts for material advancement of knowledge, destructively ending in discovery of nuclear weapons. So that is our material mind conditioning. So as I said, the yoga process is to actually bring the mind to the level of the soul, to make the mind go in line with the nature of the soul, not to act contrary to the nature of the soul. Nature of the soul is spirit, but the mind, see, when the mind is materialistic, then it's like having so many different ideas. Something like how, when there is a drama, when the actor takes on a role, right? So just imagine the actor to be the soul, and the role he takes in a drama to be the mind. So for the sake of doing the drama, the actor puts on a certain personality and certain behavior, and he really moves into the acting with that kind of person. A good actor, he really goes into his role, right? So that is merging his mind in something which is different than his actual personality. So the actor has his own personality, but for the sake of the drama, he is able to change his personality and behave in such a way. So that is a kind of analogy which I can give to talk about how the soul behaves differently with the mind, right? Because the mind is material. So once he comes out of the drama, all right, okay, he gives up that role, then he goes back into his actual personality, right? So the mind at that time merges into the Atma. So that is another way of looking at it. All right, so then Sukadev Goswami continues. And by doing this, the Dhira, the transcendentalist, Dhira means one who is taking the transcendental path, one who is sober and one who is focused towards spiritual life. That's the Dhira, right? And by doing this, the dhira becomes situated in the supreme stage of satisfaction. So this is called labda upasantihi. In other words, this is the stage of Brahman also, right? Where he merges with spirit. Everything is spiritual, right? So this is the preliminary stage of yoga, right? And he comes to this stage of Brahman. And at that stage, so that he ceases from all other activities. So at this stage, when he realizes his actual position, that he is Atma, and Atma is non-different than Brahman, right? Everything is also Atma. So when he realizes this, he has nothing to do with material designations, then he ceases all activities, or in other words, ceases all material activities, and he remains in trance, enjoying the situation that he is eternal. So in Brahman realization, the understanding is that he is eternal, and he's not finite. So this is the kind of understanding he gets. Okay. Now in Labda Upashantihi, this realization is higher than Brahman realization, because he not only realizes that he is eternal, he also understands about the Paramatma, and Paramatma gives him the Chit realization. You know, there is Sat Chit Ananda. At Brahman, there is Sat, eternal feature. At Paramatma realization, there's Chit. Chit means cognizance or knowledge or understanding. That means he understands everything around him, right? He's able to know, he is able to see consciousness in every situation. So that's because he has connected with the supreme consciousness, which is Paramatma, the Parabrahman, the seed of the Brahman, the source of the Brahman is Paramatma. So Dhyana Mishra, so this process of following this kind of steps until he comes to the Brahman or Paramatma realization, where it is known as Labda Upashantihi. Labda Upashanti means the supreme stage of satisfaction. Satisfaction, why he's satisfied? Because there's no more anxiety. He understands he's eternal, right? So this process is called Dhyana Mishra Bhakti Yoga. So the yogi who is mixed, who is following Dhyana Yoga, but mixed with a little bit of devotion. So why mixed with devotion? Why Dhyana Yoga? Dhyana Yoga because he's doing meditation. And why mixed with a little bit of devotion? Mishra means friend. Dhyana Mishra Bhakti. That means meditation, but friendly with the bhakti. So in other words, mixed devotion. Meditation mixed with bhakti. So this is called mixed devotion, not pure devotion. So why I say that again? Because unless he has mixed devotion, he cannot even attain Brahman. So that's why Virat Rupa was introduced, to create the basic mixed devotion. Once he graduates from Virat Rupa, he comes to Paramatma, then that mixed devotion becomes a little stronger. The devotion part becomes a little stronger. So then he's able to attain Paramatma, right? So therefore, this is Dhyana Mishra Bhakti Yogi. But at the same time, we have the pure Bhakti Yogi. So just to contrast how a Bhakti Yogi also attains this Labda Upashantihi. So Dhyana Yogi attains Labda Upashanti by mixing a little bit of Bhakti, right? But the main process is meditation. Whereas the pure Bhakti Yogi, how does he attain this position of Labda Upashanti? So Prabhupada explains, the Lord and his service are identical, being on the absolute plane. So service to the Lord and the Lord himself are identical, because in Bhakti, we have the same potency. Remember, I mentioned many times, we have three Bhagavans or the three Bhagavat. When we say Bhagavat, Bhagavat refers to Krishna, Bhagavat refers to the devotees, and Bhagavat also refers to the Grantha, the book, right? So similarly, they are all non-different in the same level when it comes to Bhakti Yoga. So service Just like Krishna's names, pastimes, qualities, form are all identical. Simply by invoking Krishna's names, we get the other aspects of Krishna also automatically, because everything is the name also. So simply by appreciating the form of the Lord, so the form of the Lord cannot be independent of the name of the Lord, cannot be independent of the qualities of the Lord. So therefore, the name, form, qualities, and name, quality, form, and pastimes, these are all identical. So, and same thing also with the devotional service. So bhakti, which is devotional service, is also identical with the Supreme Lord. So therefore, the Lord and his service are identical, being on the absolute plane. So that's why bhakti yoga is very powerful, because we are beginning the process itself by identifying with the Supreme Lord directly, right? But in our level of contamination, because our minds and our hearts and our intelligence is all contaminated, we cannot appreciate the Supreme. Just like we are directly associating with the sun, but we cannot see the sun because the sun is covered by clouds. So the clouds, once the clouds are removed, then we can directly associate with the sun, right? So then Prabhupada continues, therefore the unalloyed intelligence and the mind are merged into the Lord. So in devotional service, right, we are called the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So when our consciousness is Krishna consciousness, then what does it mean? It means our intelligence and our mind are merged into the Lord. So we are directly linked to the Lord simply by our consciousness, by our seva, by our chanting, by our hearing. The entire process of bhakti, it all links directly with the Lord, right? And thus, the living entity does not remain a seer himself, but becomes seen by the Lord transcendentally. So this is the fundamental difference. In the fundamental difference between the dhyana yogi and the bhakti yogi. In the dhyana yogi, he wants to see the Lord by meditating, concentrating upon the Paramatma, and after a long time, Paramatma may briefly reveal himself to the yogi, right? That is because he is approaching this mechanically, but because there is some tinge of devotion, the Lord agrees to reveal himself eventually at the end, just for a brief time. And that also Paramatma feature only. Whereas for the Bhakti Yogi, right, because he is acting in line with the Lord, so what happens is he's directly linked with Bhagavan, and Bhagavan now wants to look at that devotee, wants to look at that person. So when Bhagavan wants to look at that devotee, then automatically, he's already attained transcendence. So that's why when Bhagavan looks at the jiva, that is called mercy or grace, right? So we have the two types of method. One is so full of endeavor only and little bit of grace, which is the dhyana yoga, which is so difficult. And the other path is called the path of grace. It's literally called the path of grace. Pushti marga. Pushti means mercy or grace, right? So bhakti is pushti marga. We rely on the grace of the Lord by following his instructions on this. So the Lord, when once the Lord begins to see the devotee, right? When he sees the devotee, right? When the seer himself, thus the living entity does not remain a seer himself, but becomes seen by the Lord transcendentally. So when the Paramatma takes direct interest in looking at us, when the Lord uh, sees us, sees why he wants to see us. He wants to see us because we attract the mercy of the Lord. So how to attract the mercy of the Lord? That is by following we have sadhana, by performing our sadhana and by following very good sadachar, right? We attract the mercy of the Lord. What's the basis of good sadhana and good sadachar or etiquette? The basis of that is siddhanta, to get the correct understanding, to purify the intelligence. So in this way,
we are able to be seen by the Lord. That's why Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj always says, don't try to see the Lord. Act in such a way that the Lord wants to see us. So how do we act in such a way? So it is very much connected to our behavior, right? Very much connected to our sadachar, our Vaishnava etiquette, our Vaishnava behavior, and also our sadhana. Sadhana is also part of the behavior, right? What our sincerity and our genuineness can be shown by to what degree we follow our sadhana, to what degree we try to follow in the footsteps of great devotees, yeah, and taking up the sadachar, the etiquette as well. One has to behave in a manner which is fit as a devotee also, right? So that will reveal what's in our heart. So the Lord, then we become very attractive to the Lord. So then what happens? Then Bhagavad Gita chapter 10, Chatur Sloki, Krishna says, Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dhridavritaha. No, sorry, not that one. Tesham satatam yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. I, living within the heart, I show them the way. Krishna says, I show them the way in which my devotee can come to me. How he shows? In the next verse, Tesham evanu kampartam aham ajnana jamtamaha nasayami atma bhavasto jnana deepena bhashvataha. By shining the lamp of knowledge, I instruct him and I guide him towards me. Right? So this is the same thing here. The Lord then dictates to him to act according to his desire. So this is what Krishna did for Arjuna. He purified Arjuna's intelligence with knowledge by hearing. And then he told Arjuna, now you act for me. So therefore, Krishna starts to act, and he was diligent, and Krishna gave the intelligence and the understanding and the fortune and the destiny to bring Arjuna towards victory. So that is what we are doing in our spiritual life also, right? By following the sadhana process given to us by our acharyas, given to us by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself directly, right? By continuously hearing to strengthen our motivation, our determination, and to purify our intelligence. So in this way, and to act in such a way that it is pleasing to the acharyas and to the Supreme Lord, right? So then we become seen by the Lord, and the Lord takes direct steps. He begins to instruct from within the heart, Chaitya Guru, right? So in this way, he helps us. So then Prabhupada says, and when the living entity follows him perfectly, the living entity ceases to discharge any other duty for his illusory satisfaction. So this is the point of surrender, Sarva Dharmam Parityagya. So he surrenders. No more. Surrender means no more any other desires. Every desire is only for the satisfaction of Guru and Krishna. So that is complete surrender, right? So it will come to that stage. So this is contrasting the dhyana yoga process with the bhakti yoga process. So then what happens? Sukadev Goswami continues. In that transcendental state of Labdopashanti, right? This Labdopashanti stage, which is the transcendental blissful stage of Sat and Chit realization, where Paramatma is already attained, right? So what does the Jiva feel? Again, I mentioned just now, the aspect of this Labdopashanti is two things. One is Sat. Sat means eternity. So see here, there is no supremacy of devastating time. So what does that mean? That means he has attained the concept of eternity. He not only understands it conceptually, he realizes it completely through his being. So he sees himself as eternal, right? So in that transcendental stage of Labdopashanti, there is no supremacy of devastating time, which controls even the celestial demigods who are empowered to rule over mundane creatures. So we can understand one who has attained this stage, he is greater than even the Devatas, because the Devatas have not attained this stage. They are still subjected to the three modes of nature, right? So
and they have not merged the mind into their Atma and so forth. So even though the Devatas are controlling the mundane creatures, like, many of the activities, all activities generally are like Indra controls rain, for example, and different Devatas are there to control various aspects. We will hear more about this in the next chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, how the different Devatas, not next chapter, I think either the next chapter or the next session, we will hear about the different Devatas and what they control. But this person who has attained Labdha Prashanti is greater. Right? So then Sukadeva Goswami says, nor is there the mode of material goodness, nor passion, nor ignorance. So this person in Labdha Prashanti stage has transcended the three modes of material nature. So the three modes is transcended. So it doesn't tie him down anymore, right? But the Devatas are still controlled by the three modes. So even up to the level of Brahma, because he is in the predominantly mode of passion and goodness, but like that, so there are different levels. Nor even the false ego, nor the material causal ocean, nor the material nature. So not only he transcends the three modes, he also transcends the false ego. So as I mentioned earlier, the false ego is also dissolved. And nor the material causal ocean. So he's not affected by the material creation. So he no longer has a connection with the material creation. That means his body is no longer material at that time. We will hear more about this point, right? But what happens is the body no longer becomes material, it becomes transcendental. So because he's no longer linked to the material causal ocean, nor the material nature, Pradhan. So Prabhupada says here, the devotees experience the above mentioned state of affairs by attainment of spiritual forms of activity. Now that's another difference between the Dhyana Yogi and the Bhakti Yogi. Now in the Labdha Pashanti stage, remember I mentioned he understands he's eternal, and then he's able to transcend the three modes, and then he's able to dilute his false ego, and then he is also not affected by the material nature, material creation, right? But he still remains in Dhyana Yogi, the one who's performing Dhyana Yogi and attain this level. He, at this point, he may fall back into the Brahman stage, or from the Paramatma stage, he may progress further towards pure devotional service. Now, if he falls back into the Brahman stage, he does not attain a individual form. He just remains merged in the ocean of Brahman. He remains as part of a bubble or part of the water molecules within the atmosphere of the Brahman ocean. So he is basically just remaining there within that ocean of Brahman or atmosphere of Brahman. Doesn't do any activity, just remains inert, remains like that for a very, 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 very long time. So that is Brahman realization. Whereas Prabhupada says here, the devotee, what happens to the devotee at the Labdha Pashanti stage, he doesn't want to merge into the Brahman. From Paramatma, if he goes to the pure devotional stage, what happens is he develops a spiritual body. Just like how I mentioned earlier, we had bubbles in the ocean. What separates the bubbles from the ocean? It is the air, right? What separates the air bubble from the atmosphere? It is the thin skin of water. The thin skin of water separates the air bubble from the atmosphere. Okay, so when he loses the skin of water is like false ego. So when the skin of water is removed, then the air within the bubble merges into the atmosphere. But even though the air within the bubble merges with the atmosphere, the molecules and the atoms of that particular air still remains individual. It doesn't disappear. The molecules don't just disappear. The atoms just don't disappear. They are still there, right? And this is proven by how fragrance is carried from one place to another place. So in the spiritual world, in the spiritual realm, right? If a devotee is going further than this level, he doesn't want to merge into the Brahman. So what does he do? He creates himself another bubble. Now this bubble is it's a spiritual bubble. So and this bubble creates individuality. So the individuality is again created for the person. But this individuality is not material bubble made of the skin of water. This bubble is now a spiritual bubble made up of spiritual body. So like this, we have bubbles in the spiritual world, right? Many planets. Each planet has a loka, right? So you can imagine it like this, like a bubble. So, but each bubble now, it's not, the material is not water. The material of the bubble is called spirituality. So this spirituality now creates a form, and this form is spiritual form. So the devotee develops a spiritual form. He doesn't just remain inert within the ocean of Brahman. He develops a spiritual form. Why he develops the spiritual form? Right? So here Prabhupada has mentioned why, right? By attainment of spiritual forms for activity in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So the purpose of developing spiritual form is to perform transcendental activity with the Lord. So this is our goal, right? Our goal is so that we develop spiritual bodies or spiritual forms so that we can perfectly execute devotional service. That's why I said there are two levels of devotional service. Devotional service in the three modes. So that means we are doing devotional service in the like water bubbles in the water, and the second one is devotional service in ecstasy or devotional service in liberation. So either way, the bubbles are there. Devotional service in within the three modes, it's water bubbles, whereas devotional service in spiritual in devotional service in ecstasy or devotional service in liberation, it's spiritual bubbles. So the bubbles represent form. So there is form. So in either way, form is not removed. Material form is dissolved, but instead we get spiritual form. Why spiritual form is necessary? Because we need form in order to do service. And that is the actual position, the actual swadharma of the living entity, to have particular spiritual form to do eternal spiritual service to the Lord. So Prabhupada says, but the impersonalist, because of his neglecting the association of the Lord, does not develop a spiritual body for spiritual activity, but remains a spiritual spark only, or bubble, like how I'm saying, not bubble, molecule, right? The bubble is removed, he remains a molecule or spark. So that's what the impersonalist, if he desires that way. So this is like a crossroad. The crossroad in Labdo Pashanti stage is the Brahman stage is like a crossroad. He can either remain molecule only without form, floating in the ocean of Brahman eternally, but even that eternity is not forever, right? Because he will eventually get bored, because the nature of Atma is activity. So if he artificially remains inactive in Brahman, floating forever in Brahman, at one point of time he will get agitated, and out of don't know what else to do, he will again take a bubble form and come back into the material world because he doesn't know anything higher. So that's the danger of the impersonalist. They can still fall back to the material world. Whereas the devotees or those who take up devotional service, right? Because they develop spiritual bubbles, they move to the spiritual sky. So they don't fall back to the material world again. So this nice verse.
Sukadev Goswami continues. Param padam Vaishnavam amananti tat yanniti nititi atat utsirshavaha visujya dauratmayam ananya saudra hrido paguyarha padam pade pade. So forgive my pronunciation. It can be said better, sung better. I'm not trained in this. But anyway, Srimad Bhagavatam, this particular verse, it says the transcendentalist is the transcendentalist's desire to avoid everything godless. They don't want to have anything to do with anything which is not godless, which is not spiritual. So that's why in Bhagavad Gita also, in chapter 2, the beginning of chapter 2, not the beginning of chapter 2, in the middle of chapter 2, but in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita itself, before going further into the other yoga stages, Krishna tells Arjuna, Duretma Duretma avaram karma Duratma avaram karma Buddhi yoga dhananjayat Buddhayo avasai sorry Durena avaram karma Buddhi yoga dhananjaya Buddhau sharanam anvicha kripanaha phala hetavaha. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, don't become a miser. Don't follow the path of karma kanda. Take to the path of Nivriti yoga, right? And that means give up, keep far away, duram, keep far away all activities which are sinful. And how do you do this? With Buddhi Yoga, with the yoga of intelligence. Remember just now I mentioned also the intelligence being purified, right? So Buddhi Yoga, by intelligence, by the yoga of intelligence, keep sinful activities far away. And in this way, practice yoga in the path of the Nivriti Yoga, right? So otherwise, if you follow the karma kanda path, you are simply a miser because you're wasting this human birth. So, and the same thing is repeated here. The transcendentalists desire to avoid everything godless or everything sinful, for they know that supreme situation in which everything is related with the Supreme Lord Vishnu. So they only want to have everything to do with the Supreme Lord only. They don't want to have anything to do with the other than the Lord. Right? But at the same time, they know that everything is the Lord, right? Everything is part and parcel of the Lord. So even darkness, for example, comes from the back of the Lord, right? Even sin, right, is a perverted shadow of the Lord. So in this way, there are different aspects. Like lust is basically coming from love. Lust is a perverted reflection of love in the material world. So everything, perverted or otherwise, has its source from none other than the Supreme Lord. So one whose intelligence is purified, who is in the path of yoga, either dhyana yoga or bhakti yoga, he understands that everything is linked to the Lord only. So therefore the dhyana mishra yogi, the dhyana mishra bhakti yogi, and the pure bhakti yogi both think this way. So here I'm showing you the consciousness of the transcendentalist. Both the bhakti yogi and the dhyana yogi, both of them think in this way. Everything is connected to the Supreme Lord. Why the dhyana yogi is also able to see this way? The dhyana yogi is able to see because he has attained Paramatma realization. So he sees Paramatma not only within himself, he sees Paramatma in other people's hearts. He sees Paramatma in every other living entity's hearts. He sees Paramatma in every atom, living or not living. And he sees Paramatma in between the atoms also. So therefore, everything, in other words, is the Lord or part and parcel of the Lord. So this kind of vision is seen by the yogi. Devotees also see this, right? How does the pure bhakti yogi see this also? Therefore, a Vaishnavam, see the word here, therefore a Vaishnavam. So at this point, the Dhyana Mishra yogi is also considered a Vaishnava because he has already become friends with Bhakti.
Dhyana has become friends with bhakti. That's why he was able to attain Paramatma. So he's already called a Vaishnava also. Right? So regardless, Dhyana Yoga or Bhakti Yoga, at this stage, Vaishnavas, they don't create perplexities. They don't become confused, right? But worships the lotus feet of the Lord at every moment, pade pade. So they don't worry about various situations. They don't worry about different, aspects. They only their only purpose is to worship the Lord at every step. Same thing what Bhagavad Gita says. Bhagavad Gita again, Chatur Sloka. What does Krishna say as a description of the Vaishnavas? Right? He says, Madchita Madgata Prana Bodhayanta Parasparam Katayantascha Katayantascha Nityam Tusyanticha Ramanticha. So the pure devotees are always thinking of me, Madchita Gata, Mad Prana, and their life is also me. And in this way, they dedicate their lives fully in serving me and attaining me. So they are talking about me all the time, Katayantascha, and by talking about me all the time, they relish me so much, Ramanticha, they relish me so much. And in this way, they are so satisfied. So this is what a devotee of the Lord is, Vaishnavanam, right? And what does such a devotee do? He worships the Lord with all his heart. The previous verse to the Chatur Sloki in Bhagavad Gita says that, right? Aham sarvasva prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajanti mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. So after realizing the Lord is the source of everything spiritual and material and every other universe, aham sarvasva prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate, everything comes from him. After realizing this, right, what does he do? He worships the Lord with all his heart, right? So that is what chapter 10 Bhagavad Gita says. So the same thing here is repeated again in Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, a Vaishnavam does not create perplexities, but worships the lotus feet of the Lord at every moment with all his heart. In other words, right? Pade pade. Taking them into his heart, Hrida. So worships the Lord every moment, taking the Lord into his heart. So this is also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita chapter 6 about the Dhyana Yogi. After talking about the Dhyana Yogis, what does Krishna say in the end, chapter 6? He says, Yoginam api sarvesham madgatinantara atmanaha Shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha. He says, of all the yogis, that yogi who is with great faith always is in me, abides in me, thinks of me, right? In other words, he's with me all the time. I am in him and he's in me, right? So that person is the greatest yogi, right? So now that Dhyana yogi has become Bhakti yogi. So that's why he's called Vaishnavam now. So Prabhupada continues. So the Bhakti Yoga, when we are following Bhakti Yoga, we also come to this stage naturally. We don't have to do pranayama, we don't have to do asanam, we don't have to go step by step like that, right? So Prabhupada says, a pure devotee of the Lord no longer wastes valuable time in discriminating the Brahman. So he doesn't create perplexities. What does it mean here when it says the Vaishnavam doesn't create perplexities? It means that the Vaishnava doesn't no longer bothers with Brahman or anything else, right? He only has eyes and heart and ears to serve only Bhagavan. So because he has realized Bhagavan, automatically Paramatma and Brahman are already achieved also. But he only focuses on Bhagavan realization, serving Bhagavan. So a pure devotee of the Lord no longer wastes valuable time in discriminating the Brahman from non-Brahman, because he knows perfectly well that the Lord Parabrahman, by his Brahman energy, is interwoven in everything. So he understands this naturally. So just like in Bhagavad Gita, also we have this verse in chapter 5, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini Sunichaiva Swapakecha
Panditaha Samadarshinaha. The humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, so again we see here true knowledge, purified intelligence is the key to control the mind, to merge the mind with the Atma. Then he is able to see, right? By the connection with the Atma, with the transcendence, with Krishna, right? He is able to see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater, all equally. Equally because he sees the soul, he sees the Atma within every living entity. And Atma is equal. There's no one Atma which is higher than the other Atma. All Atmas are equal. That's why equal vision, right? So that means he is seeing them spiritually. And he also sees Paramatma. The one, there is one Atma which is greater than every other Atma. That is Paramatma. Mhm. So he sees Paramatma also. Therefore, he sees equal vision everywhere. And thus, everything is looked upon by a devotee as the property of the Lord. So this is the real renunciation. One is able to see everything as the property of the Lord. He doesn't waste anything. He doesn't, misuse anything. No embezzlement, no misusing, no wastage. Right? So everything, every last drop and every penny is utilized. Every moment of time is utilized in the service of the Lord, in connection, in union with, in unity with the Lord. So that's what Prabhupada was doing when he went, right? He was in the West. Every moment of his time was spent in this way. So still there are many devotees who are also dedicating their lives that way. Every moment of their time. Some devotees, their entire lives, they just dedicate their services towards Krishna consciousness. So that's very wonderful. And thus everything is looked upon by a devotee as the property of the Lord. Even grihasthas can develop this vision. That's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur saw. Everything is also as the property of the Lord. And he used it in the service of the Lord. So it doesn't matter whether we are grihasthas or brahmanas or sannyasis or vanaprasthas, right? Developing this vision is independent of the varna and ashram. Remember, it is beyond the three modes. So varnashram is within the three modes. So the devotee tries to engage everything in his service. In everything, the devotee sees the Lord, and he sees everything in the Lord. So this is perfect vision. And one who is able to achieve this perfect vision, Krishna says in chapter 6 Bhagavad Gita, he is the greatest he is the greatest yogi, right? So then Sukadev Goswami continues, by the strength of scientific knowledge, Vijnana Drik. So Vijnana Drik means science. So it doesn't mean scientific knowledge as in the modern science. So scientific knowledge here means logic, but scientific logical knowledge, right? Or in other words, it means here transcendence. By transcendental knowledge, because transcendental knowledge is a science. Bhakti Yoga is a science. Why Prabhupada likes to call all this science? Because science means it's precise. You follow the instructions exactly, you will definitely get the results exactly. So that is scientific. That's the reason the word scientific is used. So by the strength of scientific knowledge, the Muni or the transcendentalist should be well situated in absolute realization and thus be able to extinguish all material desires. So at this stage, right, when we see that everything is the Lord is in everything, so material desires are completely extinguished. So until that stage, one will continue to have material desires. But what does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita chapter 2? These material desires will come just like how the rivers flow into the ocean. Remember that in chapter 2, right? Just like how the rivers flow into the ocean, but the ocean never becomes agitated, right? So in that stage, this is the higher stage. At this stage, no more material desires because no more material body already, right? But prior to this stage is the stage where material desires are still there, right? But they do not agitate us.
They do not disturb our determination. They do not move away our determination away from spiritual activity. So that means one is to some extent able to control his mind by purified intelligence and activities, spiritual activities, right? So, but here, Sukadev Goswami is particularly speaking about the Dhyana yogi, right? The Dhyana yogi who has attained Paramatma realization, right? Step by step by step. So now he's able to extinguish his material desires. Jita klamaha, that's what it means. So Prabhupada says this is the actual standard of a meditating yogi, right? But unfortunately, in Kali Yuga, we have many Duratmas who claim Duratma is the opposite of Mahatma. Mahatma means great personality, Duratma means fallen personality. So there are crooked personalities. There are many Duratmas who claim to have realized themselves as Brahman and yet are unable to conquer material desires. Material desires are based on the false ego. So how do we know they're not able to conquer their material desires? We see, they come down and then they do this, they do that. So many activities which are linked to material desires. So this is the actual standard of a Brahman realized person. It's not so cheap like what we see in Kali Yuga. Many people claim themselves to be one. So Sukadev Goswami says one should then, after giving up, after material desires have fallen away, at that stage he is now ready to give up his material body. He's ready to give up his life, right? So all this is attained while he is still alive with the material body. But though it's called material body, right? Everything inside him is already transcendental. Mind has become merged. The three modes have been removed. Ahankara has been removed. So what is holding the soul is simply this bag of bones and skin, which is the body. Even Ahankara is gone already. So what is there to hold the body? Nothing to it, right? So it is just a matter of time to leave the body. So at that stage, when he's already Brahman realized, he is called. There's a name for it. He is called a walking. What's that word? He is called Jivan Mukta. Yes, Jivan Mukta. That means even within this material body, he's liberated. So that's called Jivan Mukta. So now it's just a matter of what he's going to do with that. He's liberated already, so what does he do at this stage? So either he can give up the body or he can still use the body to continue his spiritual activities. So in Krishna consciousness, we may have people who are Jivan Muktas, liberated already. Prabhupada says that. Prabhupada was like that. He was liberated, right? But he used his material body to continue to perform spiritual activities. So he did not want to leave his body on his own. He left it entirely to Krishna, right? So it's up to Krishna when Krishna wants to take him or when Krishna wants to keep him. So like that, we have many devotees like this in our society also, right? We have His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj, right? Material body is one thing, but he is continuing everything in spiritual activity only, right? So like that, we have many other devotees, many wonderful examples who use their material bodies, even though their material bodies is getting old or whatever, but they use it. But look at the activity they use with that material body. They use it fully on spiritual activity only. So these are called Jivan Muktas, liberated, right? And they use it only for the purpose of pleasing Krishna. So, but here, Sukadev Goswami is talking about the Dhyana Yogi. So at this point, right, he has realized Paramatma, but he hasn't understood Bhagavan yet. So he hasn't taken fully into pure devotional service. He's still a mixed devotee, but mixed devotee at a very high level of realization. So he is now Brahman realized, he's Paramatma realized, he is no longer affected by Ahankara, no longer affected by three modes of nature. So all that remains for him is only to take up devotional service. So if he is very, 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 very fortunate at this stage, if he encounters a pure devotee, then, or if he gets the mercy of the Lord directly, he may shift directly to become a pure devotee on the spot. So that's what happened to the Sanat Kumaras. The Sanat Kumaras were at this stage, right? They were having, but they were already having spiritual bodies, but they haven't realized Brahman yet. Sorry, they haven't realized Bhagavan yet, but they were Paramatma realized souls. So, but when they came to the door of Vaikuntha, and when Lord Krishna came, they inhaled the fragrance of Tulasi from the Lord's lotus feet. And immediately that fragrance of Tulasi which they inhaled, because simply by inhaling the fragrance of anything which is offered to the Lord, that creates bhakti in our heart. Agyata Sukriti, right? That's why we should always smell the garlands offered to the Lord or his devotees, right? It's very powerful to create Agyata Sukriti. But with the Sanat Kumaras, it was very powerful because the Sanat Kumaras had no layers to filter the potency. They didn't have ahankara. They didn't have material contaminations. So it was direct, just like the sun. If the sun shines and you are directly under the sun and there's no clouds, you will receive the full blaze of the sun, right? So the Sanat Kumaras were immediately able to become devotees. They developed bhakti simply by inhaling the fragrance of the tulsi leaves offered to the lotus feet of the Lord. Whereas we, most of us in this material world, we still have our three gunas, we still have our ahankaras. So there's a lot of barriers for the mercy to penetrate deeply enough. So we have to do it a lot, just like chanting the holy names. So we have to chant a lot. Otherwise, if we were at this stage, one name of the holy name was sufficient to purify us, right, and bring us to pure bhakti. But because we have so many layers and layers of barriers, so it takes time, right, to break it down. So one should then, so now to speak about the Dhyana Yogi, Sukadev Goswami is describing, one should then give up the material body by blocking the air hole through which stool is evacuated. So this is the process. The process is when they want to give up the body has 9 holes. Sometimes the body is called the city of 9 holes, right? What are the 9 holes? The 2 eyes, the 2 nostrils, the 2 ears, the mouth. So in the head itself, there is the mouth, the 2 eyes, that's 3, the 2 nostrils, that's 5, the 2 ears, that's 7. So 7 gates are already there in the head itself. And then the other 2 are the reproductory system, the genitals, and also the anus. So these 2 are the other 2 holes. So uh, normally when we leave the body, the Atma leaves through one of these holes, normally. Now, if somebody is very sinful, the Atma will leave through the lower holes, through the anal or the genitals. So that usually people who go to hell, the Atma is dragged through those places. So that's why, sometimes when people die, their bowels are released, or they urinate, or the bladder is released. So these things happen sometimes at the time of death. But otherwise, generally, most people, the soul will leave through the mouth, right? Mouth is general. If they are more fortunate, then it will go through if they are going to the higher planetary systems, then it will leave through the eyes or through the ears or the nose, right? So anyway, to ensure that the Atma doesn't leave through the anus, so one should then give up the material body by blocking the air hole through which stool is evacuated with the heel of one's foot. So this is a kind of sitting position, is an asana in which the heel of one's foot is plugged between the anus to block it, right? So that there is pressure built in within the body, air pressure, right? Is evacuated with the heel of one's foot and lifting the air, lifting the life air, anilam, from one place to another in the 6 primary places. So, there are 6 chakras in the body. We'll talk about this in a while, but let's say what Prabhupada says here. In olden days, such practice was very common for the transcendentalists, for the mode of life and character in those days were favorable. But in modern days, when the influence of Kali is so disturbing, practically everyone is untrained in the art of bodily exercises. So this dhyana yoga process is not easy to achieve, right? Or to practice in current age. So you can see so many mechanical aspects here involved. How they control their breath, how they control their posture, and even at the time of death, they need to block the anus with the heel of their foot and sit in a meditative posture and bring the life air from one level of chakra to the next level of chakra like this. So it's a very mechanical process. It's not practical in Kali Yuga. So Prabhupada says, concentration of the mind is more easily attained in these days by chanting of the holy name of the Lord. So therefore, the Bhakti Yoga process inaugurated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the process for Kali Yuga. The blessings and the mercy of the Lord is very much present in this particular process. So what does this Dhyana Yogi does, right? So he blocks the life air and he tries to lift the life air from one place to another in the 6 primary places. So the 6 primary places, it begins, there are several chakras within the body. So the base chakra is called Muladhara chakra. Chakra is like, even in modern science, the position of this chakra is where many of the nerves are contacting. So there's like a clump of nerves in these regions. So that's at least physical. But in the metaphysical sense, there is a lot of energy which is concentrated within these positions in the body. So they are called chakras, right? So the meditative devotee Muni should slowly push up the life air from the navel, nabyam, to the heart. But before the navel itself, there is the Muladhara chakra. That is near the genital area, the groin, right? Somewhere near the groin, right? That's the Muladhara chakra. So usually if the Muladhara chakra is disturbed, now the chakra is also connected to the state of health in the body. Usually people who have lower abdomen disease, their Muladhara chakra will usually be disturbed. So anyway, that is that. So, but Muladhara chakra is the first chakra. Most people's energies revolve around these two, Muladhara and Swadhisthana. Swadhisthana is just below the navel. So just below the navel, that's called the Swadhisthana chakra. And physically, it controls digestion and a few other things, right? So slowly, step by step, push up the life air from navel, nabyam, to the heart. So from Swadhisthana chakra near the navel, push it towards Manipura chakra. Manipura chakra is not yet the heart. This chakra is between the heart and the navel. So this is somewhere in the diaphragm, between the stomach and the chest area. It's also called the solar plexus. So that's where there's also a lot of bunch of nerves over there, right? So anyway, that's the Manipura chakra. So like that, the life air is brought from one level to another level, and then from there to Manipura chakra. Most people have life air in the lower chakras, but by the process of dhyana yoga, they bring it to this higher chakra. And then from there, what they do? From there to the chest. So the chest chakra is called Anahata chakra. So that's a higher level of energy. And from the chest chakra to the root of the palate, the root of the palate is over here. It's a throat over there. So, people have thyroid problems and all that. So it usually means the Visuddha chakra is disturbed. So it has to do with emotions and many other things, but it's more than that. So like this, the air, the prana within the body is brought level by level by level by level from here to here. And then from here, from the root of the palate, somewhere here, he should search out so before that, before going to the next level, so how does he bring it to one level to another level? Simply by searching for the proper places with Diya Manasvi. Diya Manasvi means intelligence, by meditative intelligence. Manasvi means meditative, Diya means intelligence. So by his meditative intelligence, he brings his life air step by step by step. So this is different compared to Bhakti Yoga. In Bhakti Yoga, we rely on the Paramatma within our heart. So the Lord directly acts as Chaitya Guru, and we also have our Diksha Guru, our Siksha Guru. So externally and intrinsically within, so we rely on that in devotional service. But for the Dhyana Yogi, this is how he does it. So Srimad Bhagavatam continues. Sukadev Goswami says, thereafter, the Bhakti Yogi should push the life air from the root of the palate to between the eyebrows. So between the eyebrows. So that's the reason why ladies like to put bindi or puttu, right? So there's a chakra there in between the eyebrows. So we protect our chakra there. This is one way people can control other people. So we use bindi and puttu to block. Some magicians or some yogic siddhi, they have this power to control people. So they look at you at this center of the eyebrows here, and just by looking at you and concentrating their attention there, they can control your mind. So that's one way. So we can block it by putting a bindi or something, or tilak, right? So if you noticed that we put tilak in all these places. Of course, we don't put tilak in the lower places because it's not respectful, right? Tilak should not be below the waist. So the Muladhara Chakra and the Muladhara Chakra, we don't put tilak there. But we have tilak in the waist, right? So in the waist, in the stomach. So all these places are places of tilak, and that also gives transcendental protection. And we rely on the mercy of the lotus feet of the Lord to purify our chakra and to protect our chakras. So, and then by blocking the 7 outlets of life air, remember the 7 outlets. So the bottom outlets are already blocked. The 7 outlets on the head, the 2 eyes, the 2 nostrils, the 2 ears, and the mouth, right? So blocking the 7 outlets of the air. Now all the outlets are blocked. So where will the life air go? So they are forcing the life air to go into the top of the head. The top of the head is called the Brahmarandra. When babies are born, you can see that in between at the Uchitala, they say at that point, there is a gap. You can notice the gap when babies are born. It's soft at that point. So the bones haven't knit together yet. So that place is called the Brahmarandra. And so the purpose of this is to push to create such pressure within the body, the air, and every other hole is blocked by the power of meditation and yoga. The air has to escape through the Brahmarandra. So he should maintain his aim. So he should concentrate with full concentration of maintaining his aim for going back home, back to Godhead, or in other words, Akunta. Akunta means to escape the material world. To escape the material world means to go into the Paravyoma or the spiritual world. So the spiritual world is called Vaikunta or Akunta. Kunta means misery. Akunta means no misery. Where there is no misery, in Vaikunta. Vaikunta also means no misery. Why? Either Vai or A. Both also means the same thing here, right? So pure devotees always want to go to the spiritual world. And this is a devotee also because this is Paramatma devotee. So therefore he also wants to go back. So that goal has to be very strongly concentrated upon at the time of living. So many things he has to do. Huh? He has to control all the air in the body. He has to bring the life air. He has to force it to break through the Brahmarandra on the head, all at the same time concentrating on going away from the material creation. If he is completely free from all desires for material enjoyment, he should then reach the cerebral whole, that's the Brahmarandra, and give up his material connections, having gone to the Supreme, Paramgata. So that's how he does it. So from the Brahmarandra, the life air escapes with the soul and it goes away. So that is if he's now if he is completely free from all desires of material enjoyment, then he can do this, and then he can escape the material creation and go to the spiritual planets, the Paramgata, the supreme destination. But Prabhupada says here, only one who has his aim fixed upon that spiritual world and personal association with the Godhead can give up his material connections even while living in the material world. So that means, like I was saying, one has to have that consciousness while even living within this material world. So his aim has got to be fixed. So by transcendental intelligence, by hearing continuously, by brainwashing ourselves continuously, by chanting continuously, right? By purifying ourselves, by having pure association. So all of these will help us to fix our aim towards the spiritual world so that there is no bahushaka, there is no many branched intelligence, so that we have vyavasayatmika buddhi. Our intelligence is single focused. So anyway, yeah, okay. So however, O king, so Sukadev Goswami continues, if a yogi maintains a desire for improved material enjoyments, so if a devotee has no material desire, then he can go to the spiritual world. But so long as he has any material desires, even one, so any material desires for material enjoyment, what happens to him, right? He cannot go to the spiritual world. So Prabhupada says here, one cannot be freed from material attraction unless he has complete understanding of the nature of spiritual life. So again, we have to develop our transcendental intelligence by hearing and chanting, right? One cannot be freed from, so when our transcendental intelligence is really purified, then only we will have the ability to become free from material attraction. So until then, we have to develop our hearing and chanting continuously until we come to this level that we are no longer agitated by material attractions. Agitation is one thing. We also have to give up material attachments. So that is the even higher level. So it can be done if we are Krishna conscious, if we see Krishna and everything, right? So that is a step-by-step level. So, however, O king, if a yogi maintains a desire for improved material enjoyments, like transference to the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, right? Or achievement of eightfold perfections, mystic siddhis, right? Or other things, then he cannot go back to the spiritual world. He has to remain here. Right. So this is a lengthy topic also. I wanted to discuss a little bit about this mystic yoga. What are the different types of 8 mystic perfection, and why is it a disturbance in going back home, back to Godhead? So we don't have time today. It's getting late. So I will stop here, right? So just to recap very quickly, the process of Dhyana Yoga is described by Sukadev Goswami, from Brahman realization to Paramatma realization, and from Paramatma realization, if he becomes a devotee, right, with Paramatma realization, and in this way, step by step, he can become free of his material desires and go back to the spiritual world. If, however, he is not successful in removing himself, you see, there is a danger. There is a danger of not success in this dhyana yoga process, right? Unlike bhakti, there is no danger if you follow the process carefully, right? Here, there is a danger even then that still he may develop, still he may have material desires. So then what happens to him, right? He may go to Brahma Loka, or he may achieve eightfold perfections, mystic yoga, right? And this will all create a impediment to his advancement. So we will discuss that in more detail in our next session. In our next session, we will talk about what these impediments are in the Dhyana Yogi. We will speak more about the eightfold mystic yoga process, and we will hear about the travel. Now, this yogi, if he is able to go back directly to the spiritual world, then he is very fortunate. But if he is not able to go back, if he still has a little bit of material attachments, what happens to him then? What is his journey? So that journey is very interesting journey. So we will hear about that journey also in our next session. Okay, so we will stop here, right? Any questions or anything that you'd like to ask? Let's see. Okay, before that, let us chant Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Right, so any questions, anyone? Devotees? Anything you'd like to clarify? So it's a very fascinating topic. This of course it's not so much to do with us because we are not following this dhyana yoga process. But still, we should know the difference because otherwise we'll get cheated. People will come and say they are Brahman realized, they are this yogi, that yogi. So we should know all this. And we can also see very interestingly the parallel between this dhyana yoga process with our bhakti yoga process. And we can appreciate how easier it is compared to the dhyana yoga. So each time we think, oh, we have to chant 16 rounds, we have to fast for Ekadasi. Isn't it so much more easier than doing the dhyana yoga process? Right? So it helps us to, put things in perspective. Sometimes we think devotional service is so difficult, bhakti yoga, but if you compare it with dhyana yoga, it's practically impossible to do. So, and we should understand, we are aiming for something which is so wonderful, which is so great, which is so high. And Krishna doesn't want to give it to us cheaply. He wants us to develop that. He wants us to show our initiative, right? Just like children, parents, parents don't want the children to simply easily get anything they want, right? Parents want the children to earn their earn their keep, to so they can learn, so that they can develop, and they want to see the genuineness. So in the same way, right? But we have Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. He has made things so easy for us. And we have Srila Prabhupada's mercy, which is even more merciful than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He has brought us to a very easy way, simply by following his instructions. What are his instructions? Chant 16 rounds, 4 regulative principles, strictly we follow, right? Ekadasi, we observe strictly, right? Stay away from aparads, do not be weak-willed, right? Be determined, associate with devotees, pure devotees as much as possible if you can serve them. So in this way, success is definitely guaranteed, right? All right, so I'll stop here talking too much. Okay.
Prabhu, for a
Yeah.
question.
Yes,
Uh,
Prabhu, you have a
my
question.
Krishna, my question is maybe a little bit complicated. We know about the three levels of devotees: Kanishta, Madhyama, and Uttama.
Mhm.
I feel that I think by attending our the classes with you, we've benefited greatly. I think we've learned also humility and care for other devotees. Yet I find myself while trying to go in between Kanishta and Madhyama in terms of devotee level, I find that sometimes we have to try very very hard to maintain this level of not just chanting, this level of steadfast devotion to God.
Mm.
And then we find ourselves going back to material happiness because we find that we are trying our best to get this spiritual bliss, but within the material body.
Mm-hmm.
But the material body is still tied to pursuits of happiness, emotional happiness, especially
Yeah.
not really physical happiness, but
Mm-hmm.
emotional, like the idea of love for fellow human beings and stuff. And you
Mm-hmm.
want to feel companionship,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't really get it, and you're trying to get that kind of devotional
Mm-hmm.
companionship with the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
So, like a intertwining of your spiritual level as well as your current body material pursuit of happiness. I'm
Mm-hmm.
finding myself entangled in both. It's very hard,
Mm-hmm.
to seek that level of happiness spiritually
Mm-hmm.
without entangling oneself from the material pursuit.
Mm-hmm.
So, this question, Prabhu.
Yeah. Yeah. So the answer to that is I can think of mainly is only one thing. Why we go through these problems, why we have these difficulties, why we are not able to, come faster. So these distractions and difficulties are all there only due to actually not only one reason is due to, yeah, you can say one reason, two reasons. It's due to bad association. So we have to really focus on association. If the association is there, everything will become so easy. If we are surrounded by such people, it becomes very easy. But but most of the time we are not. So what must we do? I asked this question also, right, to some sannyasis, to maharajas and all that. And the answer is always the same. We have to pray to the Lord. We have to pray and show the Lord we sincerely want Him, and we sincerely want His association and the association of His pure devotees. And by praying in this way, and at the same time, we can show Him our sincerity by taking the association of what we already have. So, for example, Srila Prabhupada's books are his our association. So we have to increase our association with Srila Prabhupada's books, either by reading or by hearing, right? And at the same time, we must strengthen our own sadhana. So sadhana is like a shield. It creates a shield for us. Like when we do a good strong morning sadhana, when we wake up early, when we regulate our lives, trying to keep our lives in the mode of goodness, so that's a different big topic. So, but as so far, because when we want to transcend, we have to first come to the mode of goodness. Then only there is some stability, there is some peace, and from there it becomes easy to transcend. Otherwise, if we are in the lower modes of passion and modes of ignorance, it becomes very, a lot of agitation. So we go up, we go down, we go up, we go down. So try to bring our lifestyle into the mode of goodness. This can be done both directly and indirectly. Indirectly, by adjusting our lifestyle, waking up early, sleeping early, not being too engrossed in too many materialistic projects or things or whatever. Just do what needs to be done only, uh, and 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 things that way. So that is eating the right type of food in the mode of goodness, and of course directly by immersing ourselves in strong sadhana. So strong sadhana, getting up early, bathing in the morning, cold water, uh, chanting 16 rounds, as doing arati at home. So spending some time in doing these spiritual activities, this sadhana, is very, very powerful. It creates a shield for us because we are working people. We meet so many bad associations sometimes. So when we meet people in public, this sadhana really acts as a shield. It protects us from certain contamination. So that is one thing. And praying to the Lord, and really we have to spend more time association by books, by hearing. We have so many Maharajas classes and so forth. Coming to hearing once a week is not enough. We have to hear every day. So practically every day we have to hear at least 1 hour, if possible, right? Half an hour, if not, or at least 10 minutes. We have to go step by step by step by step, and then we pray to the Lord. We take advantage of every association. When great personalities come, we must go and hear from them. We must take the trouble to go and see them and serve them and hear from them.
So Krishna will see all this as our sincerity, and he will reciprocate in kind. And then he will, by his grace, we will get the right association. We will get more direct association. People will be there to help us, and our faith will increase. Our sadhana will also become better. Our disturbances will become less. Even if the disturbances are there, our mind frame is such that we will be able to weather all these things. So yeah, that's what I could say, Prabhu. This is basically my understanding. I'm also struggling on all these things. Not that I'm sitting in a higher pedestal, but from my several
Great.
years, my many years, I'm just sharing with you what works and how it can help. I've seen a practical change along the way. I hope that helps, Prabhu. All right. Okay. If there's nothing further, no other questions, we can call it a day here today. So thank you very much. Happy Damodar Masa. Hope you have a blissful time, blissful month, Deepavali as well coming. So I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. So Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna for the very nice class.
Hare
Happy
Krishna.
Diwali, happy Damodara to all.
Yes.
Hare
Thank
Bol.
you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Take care, Prabhu. Take care. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna.